All righty, gang. Hands in the air if you can hear me back there. Turn number one, turn number two. Good job. All righty, folks, I'm John. Going to be your tour driver and guide and tell you all about this famous speedway, the Daytona International Speedway, the world center of racing. Now, why was a speedway built here in the middle of a beach city? Well, they really started way back in the late 1920s and early 1930s. But as we make our way up on the outside of the track here in an area right now called the rim road, you'll look over to your right, and you're going to see the infield, 180 acres out of a 480-acre track that covers the whole area here. Now, this was actually the dream child of Bill Francis. He was an auto mechanic that lived up in Washington, D.C. with his family. He had a small gas station up there. And in the early 1930s, he was hearing about the racing on the Daytona. Yes, they started racing here in the beaches in the early 1920s. And it really started to touch on about the mid-1930s. So much so that a lot of businesses were actually sponsored some of the drivers. So those big winning races back in those days, they would win a whopping $500 or $1,000 for winners of these races. Well, they did drive on the beach, and if you've been here long enough already, and you're going to go to the lighthouse down at the Pond Speedway, at the very end of that peninsula there, you will see a part of the beach where they used to drive. It was 2 miles north on the sand with a 180-degree turn, and then it was 2 miles south on the asphalt. It was an over 4-mile track. Well, it was a makeshift race. They just kind of did it on the weekends, but eventually, like I said, it started to catch on by the mid-1930s. Well, around 1933, Bill Francis decided to uproot his family out of Washington, D.C. They sold the gas station to move down here to Daytona Beach to get this year-round beautiful weather like we have. And also, they were going to open up a gas station. But when he got here, he didn't have a whole lot of money. So he took a job as an auto mechanic at one of the car dealers here. It was a Buick and Cadillac dealership. Coincidentally enough, that owner of that dealership did sponsor some of the drivers in the races. So that worked out perfect. Now, Bill France actually was given a nickname by his new boss, Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd called Big Bill. That's what it was. He was 6 feet 5 inches tall. Big Bill actually was offered to be one of the drivers of the races for Mr. Lloyd as well by 1937. Now, he was a good driver, but not a lot of the best. He actually was better at recruiting drivers. So by 1939, that's what Big Bill's job was. Besides being an auto mechanic, he actually recruited drivers from Mr. Lloyd's team to race here on the beach. Well, by 1941, of course, everyone knows what happened. World War II, there we go. So the next 4 years, everything was shut down. No races on the beach. But by the end of now, World War II, it all started up again with a bang. And that's when Mr. Lloyd asked Big Bill if he'd be interested in being one of the 6 in charge of the races. Recruiting, promoting, doing all the finances, but unfortunately he was one of 6, so he didn't have full say-so. By 1947, Big Bill got discouraged about the way this thing was being run. So he decided to take it upon himself to form a new organization, eventually a corporation called NASCAR, the National Association of Stock Car Auto Racing. They actually got drivers, owners, and mechanics together and met at a hotel in December 1947 on Atlantic Boulevard over there called the Streamline Hotel. They met on the top floor in the Ebony Lounge for 3 days. And after those 3 days were done, NASCAR was formed, and there was a whopping 35 rules and regulations. That's right, that's all. The first 2 main rules and regulations, it had to be an American car, and it had to be a stock car. Well, all those rules have changed now. There's over 3,000 rules in NASCAR, and they just changed race to race and week to week. But that's when Big Bill was now looking for an area to build the biggest speedway. It took him 7 years to find this area here, 500 acres. But it wasn't open land. It was all snakes and lakes and trees. But he got over here and he had a dream. Well, when he got over here, he brought his track engineers to lay out the track. He wanted the biggest in the United States, so he wanted a 2.5-mile track in the shape of an oval. Well, the engineers got over here and they said, well, you can make an oval track, but you can't do it that big because of 2 things. He said, what's the problem? First, there's an airport on the southeast side, right over here on the left-hand side, the Daytona International Airport. Straight ahead, right on the west side of this big, huge racing track. So now, Big Bill had to come up with a whole new design of his speedway. That took him a few days, but the whole design also has a new name. This is a tri-oval track. Over there, straight ahead, turns 1 and 2, that's oval 1. Right behind us, the way we're going to head in a minute, turns 3 and 4 is oval 2. And over on the right, by the new stand where you see the black and white seats are, that's where the start-finish line is. That is oval number 3, but it's only a quarter turn. It's supposed to be a front stretch, which would have been a straightaway, like the back stretch. But because he needed a 2.5 mile distance, that part of the track goes out to the north. So it is considered an oval, even though it's a quarter turn. So now we're going to make our way down here onto the track. And they actually broke ground in November 1957, and in February 1959 was the first Daytona 500. 42,000 people were over there on the right where the bleachers used to stand. A lot of the drivers were in that first race were the drivers that were racing on the beaches here in Daytona. They have progressed fast. Well, now, first, before we get onto the track, I want to play a little greeting and welcome everybody here to Daytona. He is 3-time Daytona 500 winner, one of the youngest drivers to ever win Daytona 500 when he won his first race, that is. And of course, if you follow NASCAR, you know who I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeff Gordon.
Hi, this is 3-time Daytona 500 champion Jeff Gordon. I'm pleased to welcome all of you to Daytona International Speedway. Nearly 60 years ago, a small-town auto mechanic named Bill France Sr. dreamed of creating a racetrack that was bigger, faster, and more exciting than any before it. In the ensuing decades, his belief in big dreams transformed Daytona International Speedway into the world's center of racing. Synonymous with names like Petty, Earnhardt, and Allison, Daytona International Speedway has captured the imaginations of the millions who have set foot on these hallowed grounds. Now, Bill France's dream has taken yet another step forward with the reimagination of this American icon, blending the modern amenities that today's sports fans demand with the heritage that race fans expect from Daytona. As 2016 saw the closest finish in the history of the Great American Race, it not only conjured memories of Johnny Beauchamp and Lee Petty's 3-wide photo finish in the inaugural 1959 Daytona 500, but reminded race fans everywhere that a reimagined race experience hadn't changed the core of what Bill France envisioned decades ago. Welcome to the World Center of Racing.
All right, folks, and here we come over the backstretch of the Daytona International Speedway. Look to your left, that's turn number 2 way down there. Off to your right is turn number 3. This 2.5 mile track, there is no flat surface on the track. If you notice right there where we entered the track, we came down a little hill. Even the backstretch right there we just came down is angled at 3 degrees. The high bank turns here at Daytona, angled at 31 degrees. And we were over there on the left, by the start-finish line. That is actually angled at 18 degrees. The only flat surface is another added 1 mile road course in the center of the infield. We'll see that a little later on the tour once we make our way around the other side of the track. Now when they come around the backstretch here, this is where they really put the pedal to the metal. In other words, they're the floor. We're going to make speeds at levels 190, 200 miles an hour. Now look at the double line on the right, all the way to that outside wall.
Pretty steep, huh?
Yeah, but that's not for me. I'm like a mountain lion.
Oh, yeah. That is not really.
Well, I am, because I'm small.
That's a rare opportunity where we actually get to stop here at the start-finish line. So we're going to make our way now down, coming out of the tri-oval part of the turn. It'll slowly decline down to 3 degrees again. Like I said, there's no flat surface of the 2.5 mile track. Here's one of our landscape guys over here on the left. He's on the other, he's not on the cedar right now. He's seeing those stars and the stripes. Got to make that 3D lawn effect. So as we make our way back up onto the track here, we're going to come down close to turn number 1. You're going to see a lot of motorhomes and stuff here. This is the turkey run coming up, starting on Thursday. We're expecting over 20,000 people to participate in all of this. 5,000 just collectible cars alone that you can look at and purchase. And then there's another maybe 2,000 to 3,000 cars for sale, as well as parts. If you cannot find a part for a vintage car or an old car you might have here, it probably doesn't exist any longer. So now as I come down here, see this little turn right over here to the left? This is the entrance to the road course, that flat track, 1.06 mile added on to the 2.5 mile track. And then at the other end over here, where that truck is way down there, that is the exit of the road course coming out. The entrance and the exit is right before turn number 1. But it is kind of a boomerang horseshoe shape. It doesn't look like a boomerang. Have you ever seen that? It's similar to an oval shape, but it has a little turn in the middle of it. So now we're going to make our way up Pit Road here, and we're going to be going the wrong direction of Pit Road. The Pit Road here in Daytona is 1,600 feet long. Now, the actual speed limit here in Daytona and Pit Road is 55 miles an hour. You see this Sunoco sign right here, straight ahead on our right. Look all the way at the other end of Pit Road. There's another one way down there. In front of that sign there's a commitment line. It's a yellow line across the entrance of Pit Road. When the drivers hit that line, there's a radar detector there, and it will give the speed. If they're not doing 55 miles an hour or slower, they will get a penalty. It's kind of a speeding ticket, but it literally is go around and do it again at the right speed. That doesn't mean back up and do it again. That means take another lap. You do not want to hear that as a penalty in the race. Now, Pit Road is all designed here by Bill French Sr. If you look at all the numbers, there's one number missing because he was very, very superstitious. He didn't want 39 individual pits, but he didn't want a certain number as well. 10, 11, 12, 12A. Yeah, well, that's right. Didn't want number 13. So, we do have 40 pits. We just got 12 and 12A. So like I said, folks, over there on the right is the original victory lane. The building from its left, straight ahead on your right, is the new victory lane, the road in 2004. What happened in 2004? Well, we have what we call the Thursday Hurricanes. We had 3 hurricanes. Every Thursday, the 3 weeks in a row in August. That's right, the worst one was Hurricane Charlie. It destroyed most of the infield garages as well as a lot of the bleachers. The only thing that stood up to that hurricane was the original victory lane because it was made out of poured concrete and cinder block. So they redesigned the infield. There's now space for 20,000 people in the infield called the fan zone. They also added 100 garages. Now there's 184 in 3 different sections. And there's all kinds of activities going on here for the fans. Even the NASCAR garages, which are red garages, have windows in them. 44 of those, and you can look in and see your favorite driver's car maybe, and maybe even your favorite driver. But because we went to the start-finish line and we really can't go in the infield, what I'm going to do is walk us into a victory lane. So drop the chains on the right, folks, and meet me behind the tram. We're going to walk down the Rolex chute, and this is a very historic thing as well. They cannot go more than 3 pits into their designated pit. Another one of the crazy penalties, if the mechanics and their team leave a wrench or a lug nut on the wall, it's a penalty. I mean, it's as ridiculous as ever. Remember when they started this in 1947? 35 rules and regulations. It was that simple. It's all changed. Back then, they were stock cars, too. They were your Buicks and your Fords and your Chevys. Now, they're all carbon fiber and light frames, you know, and everything. They're doing a new gen car starting next year. They're actually moving the driver's seat over a little bit to be centered. They're doing a 1 lug nut tire. I mean, it's a whole different thing. But come on in, let's walk down the Rolex chute. This chute is where that race happens in January. The very high-end, very expensive cars for the Rolex 24. There's only 2 24-hour races in the world. One's here, and the other one is?
Le Mans.
Le Mans. Someone said it. Yep, that's right. What it is, they'll actually come down this chute here behind the pace car. All those multi-million-dollar beautiful cars travel around 1 lap. Right when they get over to the start-finish line, they'll drop the green flag. That 24-hour race. Around and around and around. I'm going to have to circle back around again and go to the other direction towards turn number 1. So we made our way down the other side of the track. So we're going to have to go out to the infield through turns number 1 and 2. So you're actually going to get a tour of almost the whole track. We're going down the back stretch. But if you look to the right now, this is part of the infield. And you'll see that big metal structure on the right. That is where we have Jumbotron TVs up there. On this side, there's two 40 by 80 foot televisions that make a massive TV. On the other side of the fan zone, that is where they have four 20 by 40 foot televisions. Now, if you look over to the right, where the staircase is, where it says UNLA, you'll see the stairs going up. That's the viewing platform, because here are those NASCAR garages. They're red garages. If you look carefully, it's kind of hard to see, but you'll see windows in each one of those little red squares on the right side. That is where you can look in to see your favorite driver's car when you get out the inside over there. That all is part of the fan zone. So here's that commitment line as we come down to the east end of the entrance of Pit Road right here. I'm actually going to make a big U-turn right here. We're going to drive over that yellow line, which does have that sensor in it that tells how fast the drivers are going. And they better be going at a minimum of 55 miles an hour and slower. And get a view of the infield and the actual fan zone area over here on the left-hand side. When you do have a fan zone wristband, you do have access to all the fan zone and the area above those red garages, and then out of the back over there where you'll see that little white tent. That's where we drop you in these trams from gate number 1. And that will actually show you the road course out there. You can stand around the road course behind the fence area. And you can watch those cars coming around that east 180-degree turn. And like I said, they should be slowing down to about 80 miles an hour. If they don't, they're going to hit the lawn, they're going to hit the old school rubber tire walls like they used on the beaches originally back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. Going to make our way around to turn number 1, turn number 2. That's going to bring us in the back way into the infield area, which is over by the lake. And I'll tell you all about why there's a lake in the middle of the speedway when we get down here to the other side. Now, once we get around to the far east, or west side of the stand over here, hold on to those hats. That lid is going to be hanging right around the side, and one or two might fly off your head over here. So this is all the beginnings of that turkey run. Car show and car swap meet, they call it. It's one of the East Coast's largest car show and car swap meets. Especially on Turkey Day, it does happen and start Thanksgiving Day all the way through Sunday. Now, if you look in between the motorhomes on the left, you'll see all the emergency equipment over there. You'll see our ambulance and fire trucks. That is what I mentioned earlier, all owned by the Speedway. And as you can see, they don't do a whole lot when there's no race going on. And there is actually a care center in the middle of the infield back there, which is a hospital that they do staff with doctors and nurses during the races and certain events. They won't be happening during this, but for like Rockville 2 weeks ago, we did have a hospital staffed with doctors and nurses. There were 70 bands here and 160,000 people, all in the infield for all of these different bands. So now we're making our way briefly around turns number 1 and 2.
זה לא התחיל עוד, זה עוד מתחיל עוד יומיים נדמה לי. אתה רואה חלקים, אתה רואה שם חלקים, עוד לא התחיל.
Now normally this whole area right here, there are no cars, motorhomes or whatever on it, especially when there's a race, because this is one of the skip pads right here. You see where the motorhomes are on the other side over there. We're actually going to go in there briefly to make our way underneath the tunnels under turn number 1. That's going to take us up into the stand. But as we make our way around here, you can see how large the infield is. Once we get over there, we'll temporarily be on the infield part of where that road course is. You'll see that in a minute when we get on the infield area. Now back in 1958, Big Bill needed a little more money to finish building the track. Well, nobody could give him a loan. He already had too many outstanding. So he asked his good friend and his first boss, over that car dealership that he worked with when they moved down here, Mr. Lloyd, co-sign. Well, he said, I was giving you money. I'm not going to co-sign. I know you're going to be good for it. This is going to be a huge success. So in a minute, you're going to see the lake that was actually dedicated to his good friend, Mr. Lloyd, as Lake Lloyd, a few weeks before the first Daytona 500 in February 1959. Now, the lake was in the Powerball race until the first 20 years when they opened the track. into a capture release fishing lake only. Because they added a premium campground right around the lake. That's where you guys, like these folks here, can actually bring your motor home trailer or your fishing kit and come here and camp for a few days up to 3 weeks, depending on the actual race series happening. Now all the actual motorhomes you'll see inside all have a numbers on the front. Like I said, this area here is normally not for vehicles. This is your area where the cars, if they're racing around the track, hit that wall, they're going to be hitting that infield lawn there, slow down before they can get back into the race. So this is a whole different event to make our way around. We're actually going to go through the pump house gate. That's going to take us around the east and west side of the road course. So if you guys out here, you definitely want to go and buy tickets to come to the turkey run. This thing is extraordinary. If you have any kind of vehicle you might need a part for, you will be able to find it here. Especially if you're a collector, or if you want to look for some very unique automobiles, you might be coming here to find them. And I recommend if you do have the money and want to buy one, come on the first day. Because a lot of those cars are gone already. They're already being made online, kind of quotes and all kinds of stuff. So now we're going to enter that infield area that I mentioned. You'll see all the motorhomes camping around on the fences. You'll see the numbers on those fences, which you can also use and reserve during the race. And there is the lake over on the right-hand side. Now that lake was not created to use as cowboy racing. It was actually created when they dug a 44-acre hole to build a high bank turn. They needed 1 million cubic yards of dirt to build these high bank turns. Well, you got a big enough hole in Florida, you don't end up with a lake. They decided to use it, like I said, for cowboy racing in the first 20 years. So let's go to hook soon to go off to your right. On the right and the left with those numbers on them. This is where you can rent those spaces to camp during a race. Well, I believe if you have your motorhome trailer, it's a lot cheaper to rent these spaces for the length of time you're here than it is a hotel room. Some of the hotels during our races will charge you somewhere between $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a night for the hotels here during the race.
לא, לבאזר, בתקופה של המרוצים. אתה יכול לסחור פה ולחיות פה. זה למחירה למשל.
So now as you're looking at the stands up there, you'll notice if you blink your eyes really quick, it looks like it's full. Well, they actually take those seats like that. It's an old television trick, because when they want to make a place look like it's full, venue or stadium. Well, here in Daytona, like I mentioned earlier, we never have that problem here. All races are usually sold out. This is the first and ever Daytona 500 history were not sold out. This one couldn't be sold out. Some of our friends on board were here for that race. Well, when you were here, it took social distancing to the next level, this year's race. But if you watch it on TV, it looks just like it did now. It looks like it's a packed house up there. Now from the left side to the west side, straight ahead, all the way to the right of the stands, it's almost 1 mile long. That's how huge the stadium is. If you're underneath turn number 1, we're going to be 13 feet 6 inches below. Actually, it's about 20 feet to the 5 feet space above us. All the pictures on the right are the different races we have, like the Supercross race, first over there on the right, the motorcycle race. There's Speedway, we have our Truck Series racing on the track. And on the left, these photos are the winners of the Daytona 500. Different years, different drivers, and different cars. That's the one time only, 1998, car number 3. Dale Earnhardt Sr. There's one big win of the Daytona 500 here. And then the last photo is the one you heard just heard, talking about the photo footage of the first Daytona 500. Where they actually declared Johnson Colchester the winner. But we tell you, said, wait a minute, I won that race. And you'll see that photo finish. The one that decided the race after 3 days, and you know inside the photo, look to your left. The car on the bottom is Johnson Colchester. The car in the middle, that's Lee Teddy. He won by 2 feet. The car on the top is the area that's called the Daytona Flat Track. Now this whole area here is where that dog racing track used to be. That impeded Brazil from making that true 2.5-mile oval track. Now over there on the right, part of that dog racing track, it's all gone now. We have the dirt track, the 40-mile flat track right over there on the right. Go-karts, mini bikes, and the motorcycles run on that motorcycle track. So we're racing different times of the year. So now we're going to go up into the stands. There are 5 new entrances into these venues. The Daytona Rising Project, all sponsored by a different sponsor, Asset Health. It's entrance number 1, Chevrolet, the most winningest auto manufacturer here at Daytona. Number 2, the largest entrance is where the World Center of Racing building is. Entrance number 3, that's where all the suites are. That entrance is actually 3 football fields wide and stands 180 feet tall. We're going to go into the Toyota entrance. They were the first one. First sponsor for a race. Going to offer up part of $400 million funding. And entrance number 5 is Strawberry. Now all these bikes here is for that Nights of Light, actually the World of Nights Drive. Drive 0 to 2 miles little track here of all the Christmas lights. Turn your radio to station 107.9. Drive under the signs as well. It's a great little way to get yourself in the Christmas spirit. If you guys are using it online, they're offering a discount now. From the first week of December, somewhere around $20 per vehicle. That's very different per car. But before we get there, look to your right. You'll see the Daytona International Speedway sign. Now that sign is 3 football fields wide as well. That's the piece of the wide. And the letters are 35 feet tall. Now they look like that big because it's standing on the side of a building that is 160 feet tall of the sliding stadium. People that don't come to the race, if they really bring some stars about it, you'll stand out in front of this entrance coming up here. This is where all the teams are, like I said. So all your stars, retired sports speakers, athletes, driving the center will enter this way when they're coming to whatever race they're here for. And there's also a unique feature about this entrance. You stood on it, out there on the track. That's right. They take the start finish line all the way through this entrance and continue it out here. Look down on the right and left on the sidewalk. There it is, that start finish line again. Just like you stood on the fence. And the next entrance is Toyota. Now, when we get up onto the second level, which is going to take us to the first level of the seats, you will see Denny Hamlin's car, also sponsored by Toyota. They do sponsor many different drivers in the races, like Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Busch. That's right, you'll see a few of those up there. You'll see Denny Hamlin's car. He is the 3-time Daytona 500 winner. And the reason besides Michael McDowell was this year. So folks, when I do stop here, you're going to need to take everything with you. The tram will be sitting on the outside of the general public, so I don't want anything missing. We're going to come back with the tram, but you do need to take everything with you. When I stop, drop the chains to the right, meet me by the exit only gate, and we're going to go in that gate there for the escalator. All right.
Oh, wait for me.
We always hold hands. It said so down at that side. I look at the side before I do.
It's kind of freaky feeling. I don't, do you feel that? Like,
yes.
It's pulling like...
It's pulling that lip off.
I'm gonna take the steps back down.
I feel like it's like got a huge load on it, so it's like...
Oh, that's used to it.
Remember back in the beginning days of the Speedway, They were still stock cars racing. These are your everyday cars. Of course, they were changed back then. They put tape over the headlights, weld the doors shut, safety glass, or they'd soup up the engine. But the drivers would drive their own cars through those tunnels onto the side. Oh, how things have changed. Of course, the cars are brought in by those multi